Coming up in today's Russian papers, advice for Russian tourists on how to get to Crimea, but careful of mines along the way. And reaction to Russia suspending its participation in the Black Sea grain deal. Yesterday's attack on the Kerch bridge dominates today's papers here. The headline in the government paper, Rossiyskaya Gazeta, "Despicable strike. The Ukrainian special services hit the Crimea bridge with drones. A husband and wife were killed, their daughter injured. President Putin's threat. They will answer for the terrorist attack." Moskovsky Komsomolets asks why the bridge was vulnerable to drones. Now, in the light of yesterday's attack on the bridge and recent drone strikes on the peninsula, you may conclude that Crimea, which Russia seized from Ukraine in 2014, isn't exactly the safest place for a summer holiday right now. But the ultra-pro-Kremlin Komsomolskaya Pravda claims that Russian tourists aren't rushing to cancel their holidays in Crimea, and it gives advice on how to reach the resorts of Crimea without using the Kerch bridge. Here's a handy map of an alternative route to Crimea, a 400-kilometre detour through Russian-occupied Ukraine, Mariupol, Berdyansk, Primorsk, Melitopol. That's quite a journey. Still, as the Moscow-installed head of the Russia-occupied part of Ukraine's Donetsk region points out, to tourists who'll be travelling through the self-proclaimed DNR, at least the curfew has been temporarily lifted. Comforting. Komsomolets reports that along this route, tourists going by car have been advising one another to fill up with petrol in advance and stock up with food, and if possible, go to the toilet in such a way that you won't need to go again for a long time, since along the highway there is no infrastructure, and pit stops could be dangerous. The curbs could be mined. Not exactly the perfect start to a summer holiday. As for the UN-brokered grain deal in which Russia has suspended its participation, Kommersant's headline, "Moscow has pulled out of the Istanbul agreements but hasn't ruled out a return," and Nezavisomaya Gazeta concludes that the attack on the Kerch Crimean bridge left Russia no choice. If it had shown goodwill over the grain deal, that would have looked like unacceptable weakness on Moscow's part. The question now is what the practical consequences of this decision will be.